Hi, I'm Chris Converse, and welcome to part 3 of this 3-part series on creating a 3D product box. In this episode, we'll scale and position our 3D box to fit within a web page layout. And if you're following along from part 2, we're going to continue working in the same exercise files. And so back in our text editor, this is where we ended with part 2, adding the graphics to the individual sides of our box. So now let's go back to the exercise files, and let's open up box.html in our text editor. And now once you have this file open, let's come down to the HTML. Let's first get rid of the text inside of the divs. So we'll get rid of top, front, and left. Save your HTML. In the browser, you'll now see the artwork without those labels on top. Now let's come in here and let's select all of the divs inside of the product div. Come up to your edit menu and choose copy. Then let's go back to the exercise files and let's open up index.html in both your text editor and a web browser. And now once you have the index.html file open, up in the head area, you'll see, as I mentioned earlier in part 1, we're linking to the same style.css file. Let's come down inside of the body area. Let's select the product box comment, and let's come up here and paste in all of that content. So now we have all of the divs for our product box in the layout. Let's save our HTML and reload this in the browser, and then see the product box now showing up inside of our layout. And now to make adjustments to our layout, let's go back to the exercise files, and let's once again open up style.css in our text editor. And now in the CSS file, the first thing we'll do is make some room for the box on the left-hand side of the screen. So let's come down to the article rule. Let's find the padding properties. Let's change padding left from 25 to 220 pixels. Then let's find the footer element. Let's come down and change the padding left property here to 220 as well. Hit save. Back in the browser, we'll now see that we have enough negative space on the left-hand side here to position the box. Back in the CSS, let's scroll down. So the first thing we'll do is scale the box. And what we're going to do is add a transform scale property to the product class. Now the reason we set up the box element inside of the product was so that we could add a transform to the main product, and the box div and all of its children would then take their scaling properties from the main product container. So to do this, let's come up to the product rule. After perspective origin center, let's hit a return. Let's come in here and add a transform property. Let's set this to scale, put in our parentheses, then a semicolon, and then inside of the parentheses, let's put 0.65. which will scale this down 35%. So with that in place, save your CSS, go back to the browser and hit reload, and you'll now see that the box is being scaled down 35%, or 65% of the original size. And again, all of those individual panels are being scaled in proportion. And so now that the box is being scaled properly, let's go back to our CSS. Let's go back to the product class rule. After transform, let's come in here and add some positioning properties. Let's add a position property of absolute. Then we'll add a bottom property of 125 pixels, add a semicolon, and then we're going to add a left property of 30 pixels. With this in place, we can hit save. We'll now see that the box has absolute positioning properties. However, it's now being positioned in relation to the entire page. So back in our CSS, let's scroll up. The product box is inside of the article element. So let's come up here to the article rule. Let's come in here and set a position property here of relative. So save the CSS again, reload in the browser, and we'll now see that the box is being positioned in relation to the article element instead of the overall page, which is positioning the box exactly where I want it in the layout. Now we're getting the overlapping effect with the footer because the elements are being rotated in 3D space with a perspective setting of 1000. Now to get a better sense of how the 3D is working, change the X rotation of the .box div to -55 degrees to look down on the box and see more of the top panel. Or set the Y rotation to 226 degrees and the left position of the product div to 130 pixels to look inside of the box, where the artwork will appear backward. And you can continue to play with different degree settings just to see what will happen. So I'm just going to set these back to the original values that we had. And so now we have a 3D product box created from a single spreadsheet graphic, a few divs in HTML, and some CSS. So with that, I'll conclude this episode and this 3-part series. And as always, thanks for watching.